for January the 28th, 2023. My name is Layla, one of your hosts for today's show.
And I am Gabriel, also your host.
We have an exciting show for you today. On today's show, we have Mr. Lachlan Tatum. Welcome to Conversations with Our Kids.
Thank you so much, children. It's good to be here.
Mr. Tatum, how are you today?
I am feeling very well. I got here, I was in a bit of muddle this morning, and I'm glad I got here just as you were about to start.
Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Okay, I am a Kittitian by birth, born in Bastia, McKnight, Thibault Avenue, a very long time ago. And I am a teacher. I've been teaching for many years. I've done other jobs, but currently I'm teaching. I write. I like to write. I'm always writing. And I love to teach. I love teaching, I love to write, I love to travel. And I love speaking with sharp, intelligent children.
I think we should get to know each other before we start interviewing you, Mr. Tatum.
Okay.
So, we're going to do an icebreaker.
Mm-hmm.
We will all pick at least 2 questions from the board and answer the questions ourselves. I will go first, then Gabriel, and then Mr. Tatum.
Could you repeat that? I'm going to do what?
We're going to pick a question, at least 2 questions from the board, and answer the questions ourselves. I will go first, then Gabriel, and then you, Mr. Tatum.
Okay, so you're going to ask me a question and I will answer.
No, I will pick the question and I will answer.
Oh, okay.
Then he'll pick a question, he will
Ah,
answer.
good.
Then you pick a question and you answer.
Okay. Those are the questions. I didn't even see those questions there. That's why I was so confused. Yes.
Which cartoon character do you wish was real? Wow. I will pick Bugs Bunny. Funniest character ever.
Cartoon character. Whose turn is it? Okay.
If you were a superhero, what would you be? What would be your superpower?
Mm-hmm.
I'm flying.
You fly.
Yes.
Okay, so it's my turn now. Now let me see what question I have here. Question is, what's one thing that made you laugh recently? Something that made me laugh recently was that's that's a difficult one. Oh, okay. I attended a match, a school match. The convent school had a match yesterday, and I saw somebody dancing, and it made me laugh. That was right.
My turn. If you had a robot to help you with school, but it could only do one task, what would it do? Okay, that's a really easy question. My homework. I would want it to do my homework.
Okay, that's good.
If you could be any emoji, which one would you be? The laugh emoji.
Laugh emoji. Yeah. Let me see. My turn again. My turn again. If you were a famous person, what would you be famous for? Well, if I were a famous person, I'd be famous for writing, because I love to write. I'd be famous for writing the best book in the world. Or maybe the best theater, because I like theater too. Those are the two things I love most. So either writing a book or for producing films.
So, okay. That was fun. I feel like we know each other now, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
We will now take a short break to shout out our sponsor. To stay with us, and we'll be right back.
Hello, this is Harper.
You got a clock, you got a chair, you got some headphones.
Yep, we got that.
What about a stapler and printer?
Yep, we got that.
Do you have a floor mat too?
Yep, we got that.
Tell me you got some cables and a projector.
Yeah, we got that.
Welcome back to Conversations with Our Kids. Mr. Tatum, I am sure you are a great storyteller. What is Caribbean storytelling?
Caribbean storytelling is actually exactly what it sounds like. Caribbean people, Caribbean writers, Caribbean mothers and fathers telling stories about things that have taken place in the Caribbean, regardless to what type of story it is. It could be real, it could be fiction, it could be fantasy, as long as it's Caribbean with Caribbean things in it, Caribbean things like the seawater, you know, this our white sands or gray sands, about the animals that are native to the Caribbean, you know, the sunshine, the rain, the hurricanes, anything at all that is related to the Caribbean is, you know, I mean, we know that we have storms everywhere else, but the Caribbean storm is a special kind of storm, okay? It affects us in a way that is different from other places, in that we have our guts. And each island has its own stories to tell about things like storms. And so a Caribbean story is really about the life of the Caribbean and about the life of Caribbean people.
Why do we have these old-time stories, especially here in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Well, number one, the old-time stories take place because we've been here for a long time. You know, we've been in the Caribbean for a very, very long time. You may know that our ancestors were brought here from Africa, and they came with their stories. They came with stories, and some of the stories they adapted, they changed them so that they become West Indian stories. For example, Anansi. Anansi is reported to have come out of Africa, but a lot of the things that Anansi does are Caribbean, you know, and so on. Birds, we have stories about birds and about lizards and fish in the sea and so on. I don't know if you have ever read a story called Peter and the Deep Sea. You ever read that before? You ever come across it? Peter and the Deep Sea. That's a Caribbean story about life in the Caribbean. So we tell stories because they are about our lives, about the lives of our parents or great-grandparents, how they saw things, how they felt about things, and so on. Stories are very important to us.
Can you share one of your favorite old-time stories with us?
One of my favorite old-time stories. Well, one of the things that we grew up with in the West Indies, in St. Kitts, we grew up with stories about Anansi, about mongoose, and especially about Jambi. You ever heard about Jambi?
No.
You've never heard about the Jambi? No. All right. A Jambi is somebody who died and came back
Oh, yes, I know what you mean.
to life. Not like how they were when they were alive, but this person came back with the ability to do things and to put things right and to fix things and so on and to frighten people and things of that nature. Well, I'll tell you a story. There was a man who was under a tree playing his guitar one night. And another man who worked in the cane field was going home. And he heard this sweet music under the tree. And he stopped because the music was so powerful and so sweet and it was making him dance. So he stopped and he said, "Mister, play that tune again for me." And the man played. And the man said, "Boy, you could play so well. Where you learn to play that?" And the man who was playing the music said, "You should have heard me when I was alive. I could have played much sweeter." When the man heard that, he took off with one running. He ran away because he was talking to a dead man. Right? He was talking to a Jambi. So that type of story was very popular in the Caribbean many years ago.
That was a good one. Where did that story come from?
Well, many of our stories, I don't know where that particular story came from, but it's a very old story. It's a story that our grandparents used to tell to their children. Great-grandparents used to tell to their children. But I don't know where that one came from, but I heard it for the first time when I was in Nevis. Many years, I used to go to Nevis quite regularly because my mother was from Nevis. And so I used to go to visit my grandmother and aunts and so on in Nevis, and that was the first time I heard the story. But I would believe that would have been one of the stories that probably the slaves and our ancestors who may have come from Africa would have told. That, because they did not believe that dead people were really dead. They believed that when you died, you came back in some other form, either as a dog. Dead people would come back as a dog, or dead people would come back as a bird, and so on. And if you were a good musician, well, you came back as a good musician, but not a real human being, but a dead ghost who could play music.
Can you tell us what it means?
About the man who played the guitar? Well, it means a lot of things. One of the things that it meant was that people, human beings, kept on living even when they were dead. Okay? Our foreparents, like our great-grandfathers and so on, when somebody died, they would actually take food into the cemetery and put it near the grave because they believed that the person would eat the food, and even though they were physically dead. So, those stories meant that your ancestors, your relatives and parents may have died, but they're still around in some way. They used to believe that you rose after 3 days. After 3 days, your spirit would come back, and sometimes you would be in the house, and you would hear your grandmother say, well, if the person who died was called Johnny, you would hear the grandmother say, well, Johnny just came into the house, Johnny's dead. But the grandmother will hear Johnny, or sometimes she will smell the smell that Johnny used to have. So these stories tell us that even though our ancestors were gone from us, they were still among us. That was what the stories meant. One of the things that they meant.
I think all kids need to hear these old stories. Can you tell us another one?
Okay, that was, let me see if I can think of another story that I may tell you. There was a man who was walking to the cemetery one day, and he fell into a hole. He fell into one of the graves. And he's jumping and trying to get out. He's jumping all for a long time trying to get out of the grave. And when he was exhausted, he sat down. And he heard a voice say, oh, I in here long time and I can't get out. And the man jumped right out of the hole. He got out, the same man who couldn't get out of the hole, he leapt straight out of the hole and he ran home. Right? Because, yes. Right, so that's another old-time story that people used to tell back then. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Tatum, why do you think it's important for our generation to know these stories?
Oh, well, I think it's very sad that these stories are dying. And it is important that they do not die. Because they have some good things to teach us. And they are ways of comforting us. When your parents, when parents today die, when people die today, we don't any longer believe that they are around. We believe they've gone to heaven. Well, these days nobody goes to hell, right? So everybody goes to heaven these days, right? They're always, even when a bad person dies, you could see them, on the internet with birds and wings and so on. So it means that even though they were bad, they've gone to heaven. But in our days, my days and in the days before me, there used to be devils and demons and so on. And these things will punish you if you did anything wrong. If you did something wrong, for example, if you killed somebody, the spirit will come and haunt you, right? So that things happen to you. But these stories help to keep people, make people behave, stay on the right track, love one another, care about one another, and things of that nature. And these things are important. It's important to care. It's important to love. It's important to forgive. And these stories were very, very, important to those types of community togetherness.
Thank you to Mr. Tatum for joining us on Conversations with Our Kids and telling us about old-time stories. We really appreciate it and hope other kids would ask their older generation more of these stories so we wouldn't lose them.
Mm-hmm.
I am Leila.
And I am Gabriel. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Tune in next week at 10 a.m. on Win FM 98.9 and Win Media for more conversations with our kids.
And you all are brave, and you did a good job, so I'll give you an applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.